I was thinking of, I don't know if you ever use Grammarly.
Grammarly.
Grammarly. Okay. So
Tell me. I
Grammarly
do.
checks grammar in your writing,
Yeah,
right?
yeah, of course, of course, of course. Why was I
Gra-
thinking Calendly? Because you're such a Calendly person. Okay, sorry, Grammarly. Yes.
well, Calendly is, Calendly acts as my avatar. So if people want to book time with me, it's like, there's a Calendly link, knock yourself out, right?
Yeah.
So it's a better experience than 10 emails going back and forth, like, are you available this day or this?
Totally.
Right? So talk about peace building through calendaring. We're going to remove the friction and frustration from
Yes.
calendaring. But Grammarly, hence the name Grammar,
Yes.
it gives you a scorecard because it says, okay, what are you writing for? Who's the audience? Do you want to sound informal, optimistic, authoritative, this and that? It
Mm-hmm.
checks on, and then it goes through the whole thing, and it says, like, for me, it's like the Oxford commas, like, okay, you need more commas, Margarita, comma, 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 comma. I always get busted on that. It's like, oh. But if your sentences are way too long ass on academics, like, like chop it up and you got a dangling metaphor and all this stuff, or participle. Anyway, something's dangling that shouldn't be dangling. But it helps you clean up your writing. So like, okay, what if we had like the Diplo speak of Grammarly, right? Where
Mm-hmm.
you say, okay, I want it to be warm, inviting, whatever those emotional attributes are in your communication. I want it to be persuasive. I don't want it to feel threatening. So what's the opposite of threatening?
Mm-hmm. Welcoming.
And so on. Did I get the tone right? And they go, yeah, this feels like really inviting, collaborative, and blah blah blah. And go, yay, success in my diplomatic email. Or then there's an app
Speech.
called Hemingway, which basically assesses you as well. And again, it's like your sentences are too long. It could be like punchy, like Ernest Hemingway. But it would be interesting to find someone that is like a master of diplomatic writing, and then you
Absolutely.
hire some machine learning to
Mm-hmm.
process and say, like, oh, this is like the most effective, persuasive way to write that doesn't trigger conflict, that invites collaboration, and so on.
Uh-huh.
Wouldn't that be cool?
That would be so cool.
Yeah.
That would be so cool. And I
As it is,
think,
email suggests how to finish your sentence, but if you had like
well,
this, some.
like, I mean, speech writing, something that
Mhm.
I've done at a certain point in my life, speech writing is also, uh, at some point, if you have five speeches to write in a week, you're
Mhm.
thinking, where am I going to get that new idea from? And so, like, maybe those kinds of things also would help.
Yeah. I bet if we went to Hollywood and some like people who are really good at writing dialogue
Yeah,
and machine learning, like on Aaron Sorkin, the guy who did The West Wing, because his dialogue is so good.
it's so good, right?
I want the
Or
Aaron
the
Sorkin AI. Can you just like transform my speech?
Can you like literally tell me what to say on a dialogue table? And yeah,
Yeah. Yeah. Or
so
the
many
media.
ideas. There's so many different ideas. Like I believe that we're already in that gray space. That we used to have the government space and the public sector and all that, and we had the private sector, and now we are like with the Facebook and Amazon and Apple, all these companies came and literally created that gray space where they're also playing in the diplomatic,
Mhm.
playing field, and they're also playing in the private sector, and they're playing in the third sector, and so I think tech has been able to create that kind of gray zone,
Mhm.
and it's time to really to explore it.
Yeah. I think what's interesting to me about tech, or certainly, even if you look at like supply chains and
Hmm.
supply chain management software. And in California, the state of California, we have legislation called the nickname is Know Your Chain.
Hmm.
And what you need to be able to demonstrate if you're a company of above a certain size is that there's no human trafficking in your supply chain.
Hmm.
Right. So talk about something that's really powerful. Then I go, ooh, if I was a supply chain entrepreneur and there are all these existing competitors, all I have to do is do what they do and be able to certify that there is no human trafficking, how would I
Mhm.
turn that into a feature in
I
my
wonder if they're doing something with the UN.
I don't
I'd be
know.
very curious to know.
Yeah. Because, you know, so it's a combination of policy and legislation that creates that requirement that is like, this is a pain point, you guys got to do it. And then that creates an entrepreneurial opportunity for innovators to say, how can I solve that problem?
Right.
Ooh, these must comply and say, there's no human trafficking in our supply chain. Okay, how can I work with their vendors and certify and look at it? Or, you know, I talking with others about like, you know, the opportunity in terms of ethics,
Hmm.
if, especially around AI and like training data. Is there a potential for a cottage industry of companies that provide AI training data that was ethically sourced?
Hmm.
That has been like, we have scrubbed it for bias. We have done it for, you know, it's
Hmm.
certified. We make sure that in this narrow sector of training data, it's like the really it's
Yeah.
quality, right? Because right now
It's
we don't have
airtight. It's airtight.
right. It's like, okay, yeah, we check for this bias, and if you come to us and like, yeah, we're concerned about that bias, we can run the analysis and say like, oh, okay, here we flagged it, boom, 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 boom,
Hmm.
right?
Hmm. Hmm.
Interesting opportunities that way. Um, and they're commercial opportunities because it's a commercial pain point, because as we move into these new technologies, it it's a kind of like COVID. AI and machine learning is like COVID in that it exposes the fractures that we already had in society.
Right.
It exposes the injustices and inequalities that were already in society, but it creates a new lens because it's the intersectionality of COVID and poverty, COVID and lack of sanitation, COVID and, you know,
Domestic violence.
domestic violence and all that, right? It just, you're like, whoa, now we can see it in a way that we couldn't see it or we
Yeah,
chose
it's like
not.
COVID became like a magnifying lens, you know, it literally like zoomed into, no pun intended,
Right.
our lives.
And likewise with AI. AI will have a similar effect because it intersects with all these issues, good, bad, or indifferent, right? And it's not like, and to me, the key thing about technology is that it doesn't necessarily create new harms, although it does do that. But what it does is provides a form of measuring
Mm-hmm.
the harms that were always there,
Mm-hmm.
because now it gets captured digitally because there's a sensor in the environment, right? There's a sensor on our phone. There's a sensor with the webcam. Um, you can tell that. I mean, Alexa, which hears everything in your house, now they're wondering, can they use Alexa to report issues of domestic violence? Because the
Right.
microphone is always on. You know, you actually have hard data now.
Right.
And so then with the machine learning, how do you
Mm-hmm.
interpret sounds that
Is that work actually being done?
I've read something around that. I don't know how far along it's gotten.
Wow.
It's certainly looking at that, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then you have issues of privacy and surveillance, and you know, it gets really complicated really quickly. But the point is that Alexa didn't create the domestic violence. It was just there to witness it and
Right.
report.
Right.
So I don't know if the world is
But
worse
also,
now.
I mean, Alexa, I don't know about the US, but is Alexa considered as a luxury product still, or it's like a household item everywhere?
The household item. I mean, the devices are and you can get them as low as $59
Okay.
for, you know, a little Echo
Mm-hmm.
device, a smart speaker. Yeah. I have an Alexa device, but it's unplugged in my house. So
I think women should start like buying those as Christmas gifts for like members of the family, just in case.
yeah, and it's interesting because certainly there's
I'm
been a lot.
serious. I'm serious because the levels of domestic violence during COVID, heartbreaking. Like I can't read the numbers anymore, you know, and I'm keep scratching my head thinking, what can we do differently? You know, to really, I mean, it's not only women, it's also child abuse and child
Right.
domestic violence increased tremendously, insane numbers.
There's like two parts of that problem. One is doing something after the incident has occurred, right? So Alexa can certainly record this incident has occurred. send the cops. But then there's like the whole prevention. So what are the root causes and what are the stressors? And
Mm.
how do you address that so it doesn't escalate to domestic violence, right?
Right, right. Like picking up the signals.
Right. And so, there's financial insecurity, there's job
But that's
insecurity.
really bringing like turning on all the unblocking all the privacy issues, because then you're really having like a person in your house, right? And so that brings in, doesn't that bring up all the rest of the security or privacy issues?
Yeah.
I mean, if I mean, other things could be happening in the house that you don't want to sort of
Right.
advertise, know. So where do you put those? Where do you draw the lines?
Yeah. It makes it tricky. Several years ago when I was looking at wearable devices, there was one, for runners, right? And there was a wearable device that had a panic button on it because it was
Yeah,
they focus
when
groups
you're
with.
running in the park at night or anything, like you can just.
And it was one of those things that with all the other wearables that had been designed by men for men, they never thought about, well, I have to worry about my personal safety when I'm running. It's like
No.
guys, they want to run. They don't think about, oh, I'm running alone on a path, and if another guy comes running in the opposite direction or behind me, you don't worry necessarily about, being assaulted.
Yeah.
Whereas women are going like, okay, I'm only going to run on these paths with a lot of people, or,
Right.
with, or,
Right.
and there's a lot of self-regulation that women do in terms of how they show up in society and how they show up in the economy. And
Mhm.
we opt out of so many things just at the hint of any kind of conflict, much less violence,
Right.
right? You say like, yeah, I'd love to go out and get a glass of wine somewhere, but I'm not going to go to a bar by myself because I don't want to be harassed.
Right.
Whereas a guy might say, yeah, I'm going to go out and maybe I'll talk to someone and socialize and it's not a big deal. I wish there was a way that we could measure the economic impact of women not showing up,
Wow, that's a good one.
right? Because it's almost
Hmm.
like we don't notice the negative space, the absence of someone. We measure the presence of someone, but we don't ever say like, huh, well, why is it that 50% of the population isn't showing up? They
That's a
go
good
out,
point.
go out at night, they don't go to restaurants, they're not participating they don't go to meetups, they don't go to evening events. I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I never went to the bathroom by myself. Like we were at a restaurant or something, my dad
Oh,
would
for
say,
sure. Yeah, somebody would be
yeah,
outside the door.
yeah,
That's
it would be like, okay, go with your sisters, right? And so then men wonder, like, why is it that women never go to the bathroom by themselves? They have to go with their girlfriend because we were trained from the age of 2 years old never to go to
that's
the
true.
bathroom by ourselves.
I thought about that. That's so true.
We have to go with our posse. It's like, me and my three sisters are all going to the bathroom.
Yeah, let's go powder our noses all together.
But it's because it's we forget the origin of that behavior, and the
That's
origin
true.
of the behavior is that there's safety in numbers.
Absolutely.
So if we can't do it in a group, we're not going to do it at all, and we don't even think about it. It's just like, oh, I don't feel like it.
That's true. Especially
So
running at night.
yeah,
Especially running at night.
which is like maybe the only time you have to do it.
Exactly. Sometimes.
But yeah, literally creating safe spaces for everyone so they can show up and do whatever it is that they want to do. If we redesign cities, if we redesign cities for women, what would they look like? If we redesign public transportation for women, what would it look like?
We had a blast in Beirut City. It was like the probably one of the uh, largest non-nuclear blasts in the history of our planet back in August. You know about this because
Yeah.
we spoke about this. And
Yeah.
uh, the director of UN Women in Lebanon and another amazing lady who runs the Arab Institute for Women, Dina Abrafa, they together wrote an article, which I'll share with you, on, so we're rebuilding the city of Beirut right now. How can we rebuild a feminist city? How can we
Mhm.
make it a feminist city? And I think that article, I'll share it with you. It really resonates with a lot of, uh, you know, people in the region where, you know, you have a lot of destruction and you want to rebuild things. How can we rebuild things in a feminist, inclusive manner, in a feminist way? And I think you don't need to blast or destroy your city to think about this. You know, how can we all redesign our cities, our neighborhoods, and our, you know, towns, for them to be women friendly?
Yeah. Absolutely. And so it would be, how do you make it easy for people to uh, commune together, to be in relationship with each other? Because raising children is,
Connectedness. We go back to how we started this conversation.
yes, the group, you know, our streets, our sidewalks, our plazas, our public gathering spaces, are
Mm-hmm.
these social third places to make it easier to be connected, right?
Absolutely.
That would be wonderful.
Connectedness. That's
Yes.
the, in a nutshell, our story for tonight, to you, for the day.
So that's a good place to wrap. So, okay, I always ask people three things. You know, what do you want people to learn, do, and I got to remember the third thing now. Sorry, I'm having a moment of Alzheimer's.
It's
The,
okay.
no. The three things. Okay, learn, do, and you know, become in the world. What do you want people to? What do you want people to? What's your call to action? This is your CTA. You get
So
to
my
talk.
call to action is for people to demand for more women to be involved in bringing peace. And I think we have the supply. We have great women out there who have all the skills or the capacity. We need the demand. And for us to have that kind of demand, we need to democratize this issue. We need to mainstream it. And we need to show in numbers how including more women in, in peaceful, you know, in peace processes and peaceful approaches and in bringing peaceful behavior shows better results. My call to action is to have more Diplowomen in the world. That's my call to action. It's more women journalists who believe in this, more women mediators, more women peace builders, more women in the private sector calling for, you know, more inclusivity in their design processes when they're designing things that can instill more peace in the way their product is being designed. That's my call to action. More inclusivity, more women in everything we do.
So, one of the things that we need to do then is we need to make some Diplowomen household names,
Yes, we need to
right?
do that. And yes,
Yeah.
definitely, we need to put in household names, and we need to think about that
Yeah.
together.
Right, right. Because that's the thing. Is there, like, if we don't have a household name,
Mm-hmm.
then we need to have a household name that represents that category, right? So we have Jane Goodall, and we go, ooh,
Environment, nature,
environment. We think of Oprah Winfrey, we go, ooh, media and Martha Stewart's like, oh yeah, domestic goddess, like,
gardening.
you know, gardening. She represents a category. What I love about
Yeah.
Martha Stewart, before we digress, is that she took women's domestic work and women's
Yeah.
domestic arts,
Yeah.
and she turned it into a freaking industry. I mean, when you look at it, you go like, I mean, she has in her magazine, she tells you how to. Have you ever tried to fold a fitted sheet?
I know, right? No, I've tried once. It hasn't worked, and I gave up. That's
It's
it.
like what a fabric, right? And she goes, "This is how you fold a fitted sheet. Bump, 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 bump." And it's a nice, neat rectangle. I go, "How'd you do that?" You know, she's made bank on stuff like that. Much less like, here's how to set a table.
Yeah.
Here's how to garden. Here are my chickens with their
Well,
beautiful.
that's what we're gonna do then.
So we need
You're gonna be the household name, Margarita.
the Jane Goodall of diplomacy. We need the Oprah Winfrey of diplomacy. But we need them to be iconic, and people go like, "That's what we mean." And then little girls can
But
say, "I'm going to be like
can I
her."
tell you? But can I tell you something? All the women you mentioned,
Mhm.
right, are American women.
Well, that's true because I'm an American, so
I know, I know, I know. But and interestingly enough, all the women you mentioned that are American, me who lives across the planet, I know
You've heard of
exactly who they are, right? Because that's what I think as well. And so we definitely need that iconic American women. But I can tell you on my day to day how many of these iconic women I meet every day and I speak to every day. And all I wish for is for them to become those household names for people in America, for people in Australia, for people in Canada. And
Yeah.
and we keep on talking about the global south, and I know that you have your ethnic roots, and the global south is very important to you, Margarita. I know that. And how can we start also elevating and making these iconic women come from different parts of the world.
Yeah.
And when someone in Sudan says, we say her name, a Sudanese woman, people in America go, of course. That's also important. That's also important. We
Yeah.
also need to work on that.
Yeah. Okay.
And,
So
and, and when we talk about connectedness, it shouldn't be one way. It can be both ways.
I see some business opportunities. One is we launch our little design company.
Diplomatic incubator.
Diplomatic incubator, exactly. Our diplomatic incubator venture studio, right? Where we come up with these great ideas and we go like, if it's good for diplomats, it's good for everybody because we all want to get along. And then we do our media empire, right?
Of
Where we
course.
start stories of these women and we make them rock stars. And so we're like their
Yes,
age.
I want to make them rock stars. That's what I want to do. That's exactly what I want to do. You told me, what do you want to do? Third question. That's what I want to do.
Okay, so we're going to make them rock stars. So that means we got to write about them. We got to promote them in social media. They got to become influencers, right? And so they have to be like personally interesting, right? It's like
They are, but this is our problem. We, like, in our space, we're in echo chambers. So we talk to each other, we clap for each other, we retweet each other, but the mainstream population does not know who we are. So this is why I started Diplowomen. I want this to be transformed into mainstream media, into mainstream. We don't make the news cycle, right? It's not sexy enough.
So you got to make it sexy.
Right, that's what we got.
I know. I mean, Angelina Jolie is probably like the closest glamour Diplo woman that you have, right? Because she goes, so like she goes and visits refugee camps and
Yeah, but we also need to make people like relatable, right? I mean, not you have to make people relatable
I
in
love
the
your
peace world.
by the way. I love your Instagram because it's very
Thank
relatable.
you.
You're talking about work, but it's also about you. And
Thank
on
you.
my Instagram, I swear to you, when I put a selfie of me with my new hair color, which is Garnier Cola, Garnier USA said, "Can we use your image?" And I'm going like, "Oh, am
Of
I going to be
course.
hair color? Okay, sure, go for it."
Do it, and then tell them to, when they're doing it, to talk about peace innovation.
That's right. But I mean, but I get more engagement over changing my hair color than I do about my work.
Oh my God, we talk about this all the time. Like, I would post a picture of this amazing woman from like Yemen, who's the only woman who's been part of the Yemen peace process, right? And I get like 26 likes, and it's like the most interesting story, mind-blowing story. And then I put a picture of me with a sunset and I get 2,000 likes. I'm like, why? How is that more interesting than what I just said, right? With my previous post.
I do these tests periodically.
I do them too.
I do a little selfie of me and I go like, "Oh, I'll get 100 likes." And they go like, "Oh, you're so pretty." And I go like, "Oh my gosh, all right."
That's not the point. I'm testing you.
Let's count as a peace tech industry, like one like, it's like,
Yeah. I know. But I'll tell you why.
yeah,
It's because people like to see familiar things. You're with a sunset, they can be with a sunset picture too, because they can go and take a picture at the beach, right? No matter what socioeconomic level, whatever they're studying, whatever their background is, whatever, they can still go take a picture with the sunset. So they can relate to that picture. Yeah. Whereas when you put a picture of a woman who is on a table with a bunch of men negotiating how to end war, they're like, I'm never going to do that. Like, I'm not related. It's not relatable.
Yeah. It's
But
sort of like,
if you talk about how many sunsets a lot of these women are going to see because this other woman is working for peace,
mhm,
and how many of these women are going to be able to have selfies with the sunset if they
yeah.
get peace in that country, then maybe things will be relatable.
We'll need to run an experiment. That, or we're just gonna have to do like the glam squad for Diplowomen. And
Oh, I have a glam squad.
right? It's like, okay, here's
Yeah.
the stylist. We're gonna make you look great. Anna Leibovitz, kind of like, right? And then just put it out there and okay, so here's the thing.
Like
People,
you can put a picture, like you can put a glammed up version of this person, and really this person like rolling up her sleeves and working on the ground.
Mhm.
And then we can run that campaign, and then we see how many likes each one, but then we tell them but they're the same person.
Yeah. If women are trained to manage men's emotions from a very early age, like make sure they're even, they're happy, they don't get pissed off, we're really good at that. Like, how are they doing? I mean, then we were built
Yeah.
biologically,
Yeah.
honestly.
Yeah.
Make sure that everyone's calm, we all get home safely, and no fighting in the back seat. Otherwise, I'm going to pull this car over. We pulled it. Or leave. There you go. Hey, this has been a blast.
It's been a blast. I had
And
such a great time.
seriously, let's do some of these things.
We are
Yeah.
2021, I'm telling you.
Okay, very
We're
good.
going to make better use of our time since we were in denial the first 9 months of 2020.
Jack. I didn't even get fit. I mean, I thought like, all right, I'm gonna like exercise bands. I'm gonna do nada. It was
All
bad.
right.
Hey, thank you so much.
Thank you for having me.